Apologize for my dog.
Yeah, don't. It's totally fine. It makes some animation around the conversation, right? So
That's true.
yeah, so Ashley, so we're on the call today to talk about all things digital communication around your business. Or to give a bit of context to the people that might be listening or watching this after the fact, can you talk a little bit about you, who you are, what you do, where your business is at, and maybe some of the roadblocks that you've run into in regards to all things digital, and how we can perhaps help you with that?
Sure, absolutely. So my name's Ashley. I am out of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and I'm a naturopath. I'm a naturopathic practitioner with a focus on nutrition. I always start in the gut as healing. So I am new though in opening my practice as far as very beginning. So I had a weight loss clinic years ago, which was very limited, and I was doing that, and then I eventually wanted to close so I could finish school. So the whole digital marketing, it's new for me because back then when I had the weight loss clinic, I had bought into a franchise, so they did all of that. So trying to learn from the ground up is very challenging.
Yeah, I hear you. It is a lot of work. So with what you're doing now with your practice, do you have a physical location?
I do. I actually have an office out of my house, so I
Okay.
practice, right out of my house.
Hmm.
So my downstairs has been turned into an office, so it has a private location or a private entrance, and it works
That's
out
good.
nicely.
Yeah, yeah, that sounds like a good setup. So, yeah, tell us a little bit, where are you in the process of establishing yourself in that new practice as a naturopath, and what are the challenges that you're running into in terms of all things digital?
Okay. So, well, since I did prior to like the beginning of the year in January, I was doing a lot of talks. I do a lot of education, and I love that. And I've done some corporate wellness, but and it was easy to get out and talk. But after the coronavirus hit, it's kind of made me take a step back and realize like I need to go on the internet too. And I've always kind of like resisted as far as like even with social media. I don't really have a social media presence, and I did years ago, and then I got off of it, and I kind of like the old school way. So this has been like really new, so I'm trying to learn how to do it and get a strategy of just like making it that it works in a good formula. Because I'm building my website currently, and I want to do a lot of videos and do virtual consults. So learning how to do that end of things is brand new for me.
Mhm.
I think I'm a little bit behind than everybody else.
I think we all have, where we are at, but I mean, you have a lot of experience with what you did previously, the weight loss clinic, the talks that you were doing in kind of the corporate setting, in the past few months. Was that already under let's say, under the umbrella of what you're doing now as a naturopath?
Yes. So that would have been a talk like going in, and I did basically how all illness and all disease begins in the gut. So I was educating people about that our microbiomes are like our fingerprint. They're unique to each one of us. Because like so many people are like, well, my friend did this diet and I'm doing and I can't. How come I can't lose? And it's because it doesn't work for your body. So I was just educating and was going out and doing different people booked me from different areas, different businesses. One was like a housing community.
Hmm.
So I was doing that, which I love. That was fun. But I think being able to reach more people just makes sense to go on the internet and be
Yeah,
able to do.
I think I agree with you. I do think though there's a great way to link the two. Did you charge for those interventions, for those presentations or talks usually, or not?
No, those were just now the corporate wellness I do charge for, but just those talks I didn't. And then I would get clients from speaking at those events.
Yeah, so maybe something that might be interesting to bridge the gap between that in person, which is still very important, even if we evolve on the internet. One thing that you could easily do is simply put in your clauses of the contract that you have with the person that might be wanting you to come in, or just notify them in advance that you're going to be filming the session. So really, all you need is a basic tripod that you can get for $20 online, a phone to film, a phone to catch the audio with a little mic that you put here. So for a grand total of probably, I don't know, 100 and $150, you can get the mic that you would attach to your shirt that day, and then a little tripod for whichever device is going to be filming you. You know, I mean, if you don't have two phones, you have a phone, and your husband or your boyfriend probably has one as well, so you could use both in that case. And then essentially what you do is kill two birds with one stone, which is you do the live event, you present in front of people, you establish that personal connection and relationship, potentially get clients out of that. But what you also get is half an hour or an hour of content to then put online to then showcase what you do. And so yeah, right. So it's just really taking advantage of the fact that you're there and you're doing it, and just filming it and recording it. And you could, I mean, after that you could do it many different ways, but if you don't have a lot of time, you simply put it in one chunk as a long, kind of a long form video on YouTube, for example. And then very simply, what you can do is also cut little bits and then use that on your Facebook, your Instagram, or other platforms. For example, a specific question that you answered, like during the Q&A at the end of the presentation, for example, you could cut that out and then label it however you want and use that on a different platform. So out of that maybe half hour or 1 hour presentation that you do in person, you might get, you know, a week of a week's worth of content that you can not only use that week, but in following weeks.
That's a great idea. I'm going to do that because that's, I mean, why not? You're already out there talking, you know?
Mm-hmm.
How do you get your video, um, like, how do you get it to where you can have multiple views, and how do you get it up there? Do you recommend going through social media saying, hey, check out my video? Or is that like the best avenue to go?
Yeah, I think, I mean, again, there's many ways to skin a cat, and people always ask, you know, which social media platform should I be on? Which one should I focus on? I think a good rule of thumb is to focus on the one or the two that you know your potential clients are going to be on most of the time. So
Yeah.
depending on your demographic, you can, and that you can easily check with a Google search, the demographics that usually use Instagram and the demographics that use Facebook. For example, Facebook has a, let's say, a slightly older average age compared to, for example, Instagram, right?
Okay.
Because before, when we were kids, we were on Facebook, right? And
Yeah.
now we've maybe jumped to Instagram, but maybe our parents now they're on Facebook, right? So
That's so true. I never thought of it like that, but that's so true. Like that
yes,
is like, mhm.
exactly. If you evolve in, depending on where you evolve, maybe Twitter is a great place to go because a lot of conversation happens there. And again, depending on the demographic that you're after, that might be the place to try and engage in some meaningful conversation. So I think there's no right or wrong. You can do them all. You could do one. You could do two. But I think taking two to start, and in that are in relationship to the demographic that you're targeting, and then just working this and see how it goes. I mean, it's got to be a constant like feedback process in terms of what you post, what reactions you get, and then how you orient your content in the future, right? You might put up a video and you think it is the best thing you've ever said, the best thing you've ever done, and crickets, right?
Yeah,
And then
right.
you make a little bit a bit of a blurb, maybe like a selfie, thought of the day kind of thing, and you put it up and you're like, yeah, whatever, it's just content, but I'm not super excited about what I said, and maybe that gets a great response. You never really know what's going to come back, right? So it's you're always testing and trying stuff, and then if you see that something works better than something else, then you do a bit more of that.
Oh,
So that's usually a kind of rule of thumb way of deciding what to put out and how to put it out. But you have to try. You don't know until you put it out there. You don't know what people are going to say. So I'd usually start with this. I mean, if you're going to be recording some presentations like that, I'd probably go to YouTube to start with, because you can easily host a long video, and that's usually where people go to watch the longer stuff. And like I said, cut it into bits and then put the rest on whichever platform you decide to evolve on. Do you kind of have a demographic that you're targeting with your work at the moment?
Normally, well, with weight loss, it's really anybody, and basic nutrition is obviously anybody in family nutrition. But I do work with a lot of people with um, degenerative diseases. So a lot of like inflammatory diseases like arthritis, and a lot of the gut brain connection too.
Hmm.
So I have like the people with anxiety and depression. So I kind of, it's been about equal as far as weight loss and diseases. You know, that's been about 50-50 on that
Okay.
end.
So maybe two things that you could use in that context for the people that you're going to be trying to talk to or target with what you put out in terms of content is maybe Facebook groups that are
Okay.
related to the diseases that your potential clients might have. Because you find, easily find support groups for arthritis, for chronic pain, for this and that. And so maybe becoming part of that group. And obviously you can't go into a group and spam them and try to sell your services. That doesn't work. You're going to get kicked out really quickly.
Right.
But
Nobody will listen.
exactly. But I mean, if there's a common question that you see come up all the time, well, that's your because you can easily search into a group and search one word and you see all the questions that have come up in that group. People ask a lot of questions, right? And then that's the topic for your next video. And then next time you're on the group and you see someone ask that same question, you say, "Hey, I made a video answering that exact question because it's a popular one, and now you can share it." So you're just building awareness around who you are and what you do in relationship to the people you want to be talking with. And again, it doesn't have to. People always say, "Oh, you have to include a call to action in all your content and all your videos." I tend to go the opposite way, and I try to think about it in the sense that you can do marketing and branding, or you can do selling, right? Anytime you try to sell something or you push something onto someone, you lose brand value, right? And anytime you build brand, that's what you're doing, and that's what's gonna. It doesn't pay the bills tomorrow, but medium to long term, if you see yourself doing this, for 5, 10, 15, 20 years, that's where the reputation becomes really important. You want people coming to you word of mouth because they know who you are, they know what you do because you're all over the place, or you've been all over the place for 5 or 10 years, right? And the way
Right.
to do that is just to create content, to be present, to answer the questions that people usually ask. And so I don't think you have to include a call to action at the end of every video, something like, "Oh, subscribe to my thing," or, "Oh, buy my program."
Yeah, it's a
I mean,
turn off when you
it,
it yeah, huh, I
especially now. I mean, it worked 5, 10 years ago when nobody was
but now
doing it.
everyone does it.
And you saw an ad on Facebook or you got an email out of nowhere and you're like, "I'm buying this," right? Today, you're like, "Email I don't know about. Okay, buy." You don't even want to.
Yeah, right.
You
That's
don't
so
even want to
true.
look at it. So you have to think about how you act when people try to sell you stuff, and what you gravitate towards in terms of who are you going to work with. Are you going to work with the people that push sales on you all day long, or are you going to potentially work with people that have put out a ton of great content that's really helped you, and then the next logical step is, hey, they have a course for $49, I'm going to take that because with everything that I got out of them, I know that this is going to be worth it. You know what I mean?
Right. That's
So
so, because then and when they do that and you see like the education they give, you're like, oh wow, I want to work with this. They know a lot about this issue. I want to work with that. That's true, because that's what I look for when I look at things. That's, yeah. Because if I see
exactly.
somebody trying to sell me something, like, move on.
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of people are afraid of sharing what they know online because they think that they're the only one that have the secret, and that if they share it, then people are going to say, "Well, I got it for free. I don't need to work with that person." But the truth is, no information is unique. You got it
Right.
from someone else. You learned it from a course from someone else in your field, or maybe out of your field even. Someone else has that information. If they share it and you don't share it, and then somebody is looking for someone to be like the expert on the topic, who are they going to go with? The person that shared or the person that didn't say anything?
Yeah, they're definitely going to go with the person who shared. Plus, they're going to feel that person's more confident because they talked about it.
Exactly.
And usually, when people do give you that information, the answer is not all but they can, by just seeing that information, they're like, oh, I want to delve deeper. Because usually it's just like a surface
Hmm.
style type of information, but that person knowing what they're talking about.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that's a good way to establish yourself online. And again, a lot of people struggle or say that they struggle with finding topics to talk about. Oh, what should I write about? What should I talk about in my videos? You said you wanted to do more videos, but I think
Mhm.
just answer questions that people ask you. You can sit down right now and probably off the top of your head think of 10 questions that you get the more often from your clients or potential clients.
Mhm.
And so that's 10 videos right there, done and done. And then when somebody asks you online, oh, what does that mean? Or what do I have to do with this? You've made a piece of content. All you have to do is share it. So content is like a body of work that you're building upon consistently. And eventually you're going to have, all the questions answered in video format or in content format, whether you decide to do audio or written or video. And then people that come to you once they've consumed your content, there's no question whether they want to work with you or not, because they know who you are, they've consumed your content, they watch your videos, and they know that if they come to you, it's for the next logical thing, right?
Right.
It's not, oh, who you are and what do you do again? No, because you've talked about this, they know who you are, you've talked about it. So I think that's a helpful way of looking at content creation in general.
That's really you saying that just like made me think of something. Because I don't have all my site up and all my information. Recently, I had a client that came to me for basically high cholesterol, right? Not sleeping well. Her diet was pretty good. I just had to tailor a few things, and I use a Zyto Balance, so it's a biofeedback machine. And her liver kept coming up, which I kind of figured because of the cholesterol, and put her on a protocol. But then she got nervous on the supplements because she didn't feel that great. So I said, well, they're very strong, so let's cut them back because you could be detoxing too fast. So she then went to another practitioner who agreed with everything I was doing, and the practitioner really loved the supplements I put her on, and told her to, because she wanted a refund of her supplements. But she went to this lady because this lady had all her information out, all her, where my stuff is still, she was a referral to me, but I don't have my information out there yet because I'm still building upon it and building my website. But she felt she needed that lady to make her comfortable with my protocol, with what I was doing. And I'm like, wow, if I would have just had all my information, she would have just trusted me instead of seeking other advice. And
Hmm.
that made me think as well, like how much, because then she forwarded me the other lady's information to see how well qualified that lady is.
Right.
So it just made me think though, like where I'm doing wrong, and where I'm like, okay, I need to have these things probably really done before I really start seeking more clients, because it actually makes more work in the long run, because the clients aren't believing in you if they don't see the testimonials and they don't see what what your skills are and what your credentials are. And
I
so
think there might be a workaround
okay.
for the time being until you get your website finished. We talked a little bit off air, and you said that was in the process, right?
Yeah.
Right. So do you already own your domain name that you're going to use for your website?
No, this is the funny thing. So we met last week, and we were looking up the domain name I wanted because it's the name of my business. Well, somebody already has it. It's a pharmacy. So now we're like adding. So I think I know, and I looked it up and they didn't have it. So I think I'm just going to go with that domain name and buy it.
Right.
But
So
no, I haven't
because
bought it.
that's a very small investment, right? 10, 20
Mhm.
bucks tops a year for domain name itself without the website behind it. And what you can do with the domain name is point it to anything that you want. You can point it to a Facebook group, you can point it to a Facebook page, you can even point it to an Instagram profile.
Oh,
So for the time being, you can have your website address and start to already advertise it in all your different social media profiles, for example. Um, and simply for now, until your website is done, when people click on it, it's just going to send them to maybe the most comprehensive place for them to find info about you. So maybe it's Facebook. Maybe it's a Facebook page that you can create in a few minutes if you don't already have one, and you have a profile picture, and you can ask your past clients to put a few testimonials on there, right? Just
mhm.
reach out to them on the phone is usually best, because then it's much more personal than just sending an email saying, hey, can you do this for me? Um, and then put your credentials on there, put your bio, all those things. So when people look for you, at least is this, at least, even if it's not a website,
Okay.
um, at least it's somewhere where they can see who you are, see what you do. And once your website is finished and ready to go, then you point your domain name to the website.
When
Um,
you say point your domain name, so when I purchase that domain name, then it's mine. How do I link it to the Facebook, say?
yeah, so it depends company you go through to buy the domain name. But if you go inside, once you're in your account and you've bought the domain name, you can redirect it to any other site that you want, because the domain name and the site are two different things. The site lives on a server somewhere on your hosting platform, okay, which is
Mhm.
usually not your server. It's a server that you rent from a hosting company, right? And then the domain name is just like the portal, is the door. But the door is almost like a magic door that can get you to this site or get you to anywhere else on the internet. Um, but you on the back end, you decide whether it points to that website that you created on that server, or like I said, to like a Facebook page or an Instagram profile.
Okay.
So for the time being, you can point it to anywhere you want. And as soon as the website is done, then you change the parameters on the back end. If you're not comfortable with this, ask the person that's helping you with the website to help you with this. But usually, I mean, all these, kind of tech companies, when it comes to websites and stuff like that, domain names, you'll find comprehensive how-tos with like step-by-step pictures, screenshots. So it's really hard to not find the information that you need in terms of doing it
Oh,
yourself even.
okay.
So if you just type, for example, Namecheap is a common company to buy domain names through, namecheap.com. I mean, there's no good or bad in terms of buying domains because they're pretty much, they do all the same. Um, but for example, if you just type, how to redirect my domain name to a different URL with Namecheap, and you Google that, you'll find all the stuff you need to know. And again, that's really easy to do. It's literally you're in your account, you click on the domain name, and then there's a little redirect thing that's usually empty because you're usually pointing it to a website on a server. But in this case, you can just put the HTTPS www point dot like facebook.com slash the name of your page, and then that's where people go. So I think that's a good temporary thing to do so that you don't have to wait for your website to start advertising essentially your website.
Okay.
And you can already build all your profiles on the different platforms. That's another thing. Even if you don't intend to post on all platforms, just being present, having an account, and having it consistent with all the other accounts that you have. So let's say, for example, you focus on Facebook and Instagram, for example. Is it worth having a Twitter profile if you're not posting on it very often? Yeah, because some people are on Twitter, but they're not on Facebook and they're not on Instagram, right? And if they search you, they want to find you. If you don't find a company online when you're searching them, you're gonna start asking questions, right?
Yeah. Right.
It's like, okay, do they even exist? Are they legit? Like they're not even on this platform, they're not even there. So just being present and having the same logo, the same maybe image, the same tagline in all those different places. It's a matter of a few hours to set them all up, but then at least you have them. You might not have
Right.
to post on them a lot. You can put a couple posts just so that there's something, but at least people find you. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So I have a question for you
Go for it.
about like how you said you want them all to kind of be like similar in a way. So I do acting too. I do
Mhm.
like independent film. So I did my Instagram. I set it up for my acting, and I recently, like as of yesterday, just got back on Facebook, but I started a whole new one. I didn't reactivate my old one, and I was going to do that more business. Is that okay, or do you find that like counterproductive, or does it
The
matter?
the Instagram or the Facebook?
So like having an Instagram that's straight acting, like mostly all acting stuff, and then having my Facebook for my own personal business. Is that okay, or do you see an issue with that?
Um, for me and what you're saying, you don't have an Instagram account for your business,
Right. Exactly.
right?
Oh, yeah. Right.
Because you have an
Exactly.
acting account on Instagram, but you can have multiple Instagram accounts. And if
Okay.
people look for you on Instagram, they're going to find you as the actor, and that's maybe not what they're looking for. So just create a second profile on Instagram for your
I should.
business.
That was like such a common sense thing. I didn't
No,
even think of.
not necessarily, because like you said, I mean, it is a valid question. Should my personal page be my business page? For example, for me, my Instagram, my personal and my business is the same page, but that was a
Okay.
decision that I made. A lot of people separate the two. A lot of people, excuse me, do it both on the same. So nothing's wrong with having both. Nothing's wrong with having one as you on the acting side and one as you on the naturopath business side.
Oh, okay. Then that's good. Then I can do that and kind of like okay. And when you when you do have the business like accounts like for Facebook or Instagram, you do you think like once a week posting is like plenty, or do you think it should be? I know you don't have to do a lot, but even if it's something little, or do you think you should do more than like that?
It depends on how much time you're ready to put in and how much time you have to put into it.
Oh,
I what I usually try and do is say you have, I don't know, 8 hours to work in a day, and that's me personally, and that's how I operate. And I'm not saying that you should or that everybody should, but I find it very productive that way, and I do see a lot of returns. Which is if I have 8 hours planned for the day for my business, which is obviously going to be way more all the time because I love what I do, but 8 hours. If I have like 3 hours of coaching, then I have 5 hours left. This is all geared towards creating content and then publishing content on the different social media platforms.
okay.
Um,
And when you do your content, how do you like do you just does it have a synchronicity to it, or is it kind of like it's all different?
it depends. For example, right now, and talking specifically about my personal training business that I have, I started a little while ago doing thought of the day, like a short 1 to 5 minute video, literally just holding my camera talking about. It might be a question that one of my clients asked me that day. It might be a topic that I'm interested in. It might be something that I saw on a video and I talk about it and I just comment. And so I do this every day. So it takes me between 1 and 5 minutes to shoot the video. No setup, no nothing. Just wherever I am. I do it in the car sometimes when I'm stopped. I do it when I'm walking sometimes. I don't really care where I am. I just do it when I can. And then I'll put it on YouTube and I'll put it up on Instagram. And sometimes if it's relevant, I'll put it in some of the Facebook groups that I'm a part of. For example, I did one today about it was about rugby and what happens during a game and what the demands, like the physical demands of the game, are. So I'll post that in a specific Facebook group that I'm a part of, which is kind of rugby coaches. It's a group for rugby coaches, so that's a relevant post to put there, right?
Oh, yeah.
But otherwise, I won't put everything everywhere all the time. I'll try to make it relevant. But for example, for me, the two main ones that I'm working on, platforms that I'm focusing on, are YouTube and Instagram.
Oh,
So I know that whatever I do, I'll try to put it on those two platforms. And you were talking about frequency before. Um, I think that I think it's a hard question to answer directly because I would tell you, you know, if you're doing videos on YouTube, try to do one a day.
oh
Uh,
wow.
and it
Okay.
might sound that's the reason I don't like to answer that question directly like this, because it does sound like a lot. Instagram, I'll usually post between 1 and 4 or 5 posts a day, depending on the day. And it's usually, honestly, it's usually how much content I have to post. So if I've made a video like a thought of the day, that's one. If I was working on the back end on another more like a presentation type video, maybe for YouTube, that's the second one that I can post as well. If I've done like some coaching sessions that day, I might have some shots to post of my clients training. So that's maybe 3, maybe 4. And then maybe I had a conversation and I posted a tweet, and I'll take a screenshot of my tweet and put it on Instagram, and that's 5.
Oh wow. Okay.
But some days like today, I just have the one, and that's okay. So I don't try to force myself to do a certain number every day, because
So you-
literally some days I just don't have anything to post, and posting for posting is not the best way to go. But finding, in everything that you do every day, finding opportunities that can turn into content, or that are content. Again, for me it's easy because when I'm with my clients I can film them, and that's, again, or take a picture and then comment on the picture. So that's things that are easy to do. It might be a little bit harder in a position where you're consulting with clients, and you obviously, that you can't talk about the person specifically, or film what you're doing, obviously, for privacy purposes or reasons. But when you come out of consult with the client, you could have a thought on something that you touched on with your client that day. So that's an easy, 2 or 3 minutes of video that you can put out, or a little blurb in the text format, whether it's on the screen or in the description with a nice picture that you picked up somewhere or took that day. So I think that's the biggest challenge at first. It's not about how many times can you post or should you post. It's about how how many opportunities can you find in your day and what you're doing to create content out of it.
Right.
I think
Like the
that's where you have to start thinking. It's not, oh, how many do I have to post? No, it's what am I going to post? What am I
okay.
doing today? And what out of all the things that I'm doing today can be content in one form or another?
How do you get, like when you say that, like about like like you focus a lot on YouTube, how do you get your like people, like how do you get people that you don't know to view your videos?
Yeah, that's a good question. Obviously, when you start, you have, zero followers, zero subscribers. So you might think, well, who's going to find my videos? It's a slow process at first. Um, I already had a pretty good Instagram presence when I started my YouTube. So like I said, I'll post everything on YouTube. Sometimes I'll post the same video on Instagram, just modified slightly in terms of the shape, or I'll add text to it. But sometimes I'll just maybe a 1 minute clip out of that 5 or 10 minute video, and I'll say go watch the whole thing on YouTube.
Okay,
Um,
I've seen those on Instagram. Okay.
yeah,
And that's how
so
you get followers.
then that's how I get people to go and check out my stuff. And again, maybe some presentation or like a short 10-minute presentation that I did on a certain topic. For example, off the top of my head, about sprinting for rugby, for example, a short presentation that I did about 10 minutes long. I posted that in the rugby groups that I'm a part of on Facebook. Right?
Oh,
So I'm providing value through my content. I'm not selling anything. I'm just talking about what I know and trying to, in the process, also organize my thoughts on the topic. And so I just put it out as a resource for people that are interested, and that gets people onto, in that case, my YouTube.
okay. So like basically like using the different groups that you're part of, using that to direct them, and then from there it leads to more views and
Exactly, and it just snowballs, and as your presence grows on the platform, then people will start to, and you, like I said, you grow that body of work of videos and stuff like that. People are going to start to find you straight off of YouTube, right? If you
okay.
have a video that's well rated, and for YouTube, that means that people that start watching it watch a long time of the video, because YouTube tracks all that in great detail. So if people hop on the video and watch 1 minute, let's say it's a 10-minute video to make it simple, and people watch 1 minute and then they get off on average, that's a 10% retention rate, right? Because they only
Okay.
watch on average 10% of your video.
Right.
If it's a really good video, they're going to stay longer, right? Maybe 5, 6, 7 minutes on average. That tells YouTube, hey, this is a really good video, because people are watching almost the whole thing, right? And so they're more likely to promote that video. So that's talking about the feedback loop of before, in terms of what reactions you get, and that you can track on like Facebook and Instagram, in terms of likes, in terms of comments, in terms of shares. You can see all of that. On YouTube, you'll just have to go into your analytics. Again, it's very simple, and if you don't know how it works, just Google it or YouTube it, and you'll find people that explain to you how all this works. And in those stats, you'll see, okay, that video worked really well. Oh, that video I thought was good, but nobody wants to watch it, or people watch it for 5 seconds and then they get off. So maybe my intro is not good enough, right? Maybe I'm not doing what I have in the first 3 seconds, because that's like the first 5 seconds of a video, and you know it for yourself if you think about how you watch content. If the first 5 seconds are not catchy and you have to wait for something to happen, you're off. You're swiping. You're moving on. So all those little things, constant feedback, like I was saying before, to try and better what you're doing, and again, establish yourself as with again quality content in mind.
Yep. So with that, like with what you said, like in that first 5 seconds, how do you capture, like how do you do, I mean, even though you, like you said, like you can think it's the greatest content ever, but nobody will, how do you is it just trial and error, like trying to figure out those, because I do know that like you have to catch them in that, like make it interesting or catching, and
Yeah,
how do you do that?
you watch YouTube videos on how to do that really well.
Which
I
I
mean,
do
there's
plenty
right.
of.
There's so, again, I mean, pretty much all the questions that you're asking me, and I'm not saying that you shouldn't listen and should just go on Google, but Google and YouTube have all the answers. And
Yeah. Okay.
and so just if you have a question, just leverage those platforms, those search engines, which is what they are, and then just look for what you need. And how to create a good video intro on YouTube, you're gonna find like thousands of videos on that. And obviously the ones that are at the top are the best. So you watch the video and you learn from what they're talking about, but then you rewatch the same video and you look at what they did specifically in the first 5 seconds to catch you. You know what I
Okay,
mean?
that's what I'm gonna pay attention to because I do watch a lot of YouTube. So I will
Right.
have to pay attention to those for 5 seconds.
So
Because
once you're in that mindset of I have to create content, you start to watch content differently because you're trying to extract from what you watch. Okay, what did they do well? What did I like about this video? You know, it was that transition was really slow and I almost want to click off of the video. Oh, that's something I shouldn't do in my content. Or oh, the first thing that they said was in this video we're going to talk about dot dot dot, and then they kept going with stuff that I'm interested in. Then you know that hey, I need to do more of that. You know what I mean?
right. Okay. Yeah, I'll have to pay attention closer. It's like it's funny, like doing acting, not that I could ever do like the editing process, but I started to know like what's good editing, bad at just because I kind of know, how it all works a little. Not that I could do it, but
Right.
I'm like, oh, I can see how that lighting looks in that film. That's beautiful. Like just things you can pick out. So I'll have to do that with those videos and pay
Mhm.
because like as you're saying that, I'm thinking to myself, okay, what is it usually that keeps me watching? Like and so I'm gonna have to pay attention to that for sure.
Yeah. One thing that I forgot to mention up until now, I don't know how I didn't, which I think is by far the best way of creating content today in 2020 is to have a podcast.
Interesting, really.
Yeah,
Okay.
to have a podcast. And when I'm talking podcast, I'm talking start with a video podcast like we're doing now.
Oh,
That's
okay.
not a podcast because you're not like a guest or anything, but it's the best way to network, right? Because going to conferences and handing your business card out is just, that's like, it worked in 2005, right?
Right. And
But
now it's changed.
if you want to create a connection in your industry and establish yourself, you need to host the party, right?
Okay.
Think of when you were in high school, whoever hosted the party, they might not be cool as such, but the fact that they hosted the party made them cool.
Right. So true.
You have to host the party. So you have to invite, and I do it for my personal training business. And I interview people that I want to interview. I interview people that I'm interested in interviewing and learning from. And I get to ask them questions. It's publicity or free advertisement for them, right? It's a bit of their time, but then they get exposure. Um, if they're kind enough to share that content afterwards, I get exposed to their following as well, right? As a kind of cross pollination effect.
Yeah.
And it gives me tons of content to share, right? Because
Okay.
out of a 45-minute or hour podcast, I can cut out maybe 4 or 5 little bits that I can then use on my different social media platforms, right?
That's a
So that's a
yeah.
bunch of content. I can pull out a bunch of quotes and use that and tag the person every time that I cite them, um, because again, you're just advertising for them, and through that process, not only are you gonna um, establish great connections in your field with professionals that maybe you want to work with one day, or that you can learn from, or that can be complementary to what you provide as a service. But again, it's going to make your audience grow exponentially because now instead of just working by yourself in your corner, you're connected to all those other people.
Which is a great way of networking. It's
Yeah.
because when you do the podcast, so do you always do video podcast then?
Yeah.
Okay.
Unless the person really doesn't want to, which has never happened. I'm on episode 30, I think now, and I started in late December
Oh
2019.
wow. Okay.
So the COVID was like a lot of podcasts because I
Yeah.
had the time to do it.
Yeah.
And I do have quite a bit of time. So again, if I'm not working with clients, I'm building my business. And for me, it's through content, because whatever content I put out now could be found 5 years from now by someone, and it might still be relevant because the answer that I gave, or the information that I gave, might help that person in that moment. Right. So yeah, I always do video, and for the simple reason as well that it's one more way of sharing the content. If I just do the audio, I can't share the video.
Yeah.
If I
Which
do
I
the
like watch videos, so I'm a video. Yeah, I like
Yeah,
to watch.
and some people listen to videos, right? Some people, sometimes I'll listen to podcasts on my phone on YouTube, but without looking at the screen. So
Yeah.
I do my podcast, I'll record it on Zoom, just like I'm recording now, right?
Okay.
And then I'll just publish it on YouTube. I'll just put the audio on all the podcast platforms, which again, just Google it. It's very easy to do. As
Okay.
soon as you have that audio file, you just put it in one place, and then it kind of goes to the iTunes and the Spotify and the Stitcher and all those things. So you don't have to go through all of them. So literally, the time it takes for me to put out a podcast, let's say it's a 1 hour podcast, so I'll take usually at least 1 hour to rewatch it, take some notes, decide which bits I'm going to cut. So maybe an hour and a half processing, and then maybe half an hour afterwards to put it out. But so out of those technically 3 hours of work, because I have 1 hour of recording and 2 hours of working on the material, I get a hour long video on YouTube. I maybe get 2 or 3 5 to 10 minute bits that I can also put as like standalone pieces on YouTube. I use all those on Instagram as well. I can share them on Facebook to link to YouTube, or just as such, the videos directly onto Facebook. So that's another one. I can, if I want to, I'm not doing this right now, but I could transcribe it or have it transcribed and use that as a blog post on my website. Again, the audio alone goes onto all the podcast platforms. So out of one podcast, you get a lot of content, and you didn't have to like create it. It just, you just asked the questions, you hosted the party, and then you put it out.
Well, it just makes sense to go in that direction. It just because of like how many more people you can reach. And does all your content, like when you do podcasts, is it always around one specific area, or will you do multiple, like all different kinds?
I'll do I'll do all different kinds, and you don't have to do it that way. Some people stay really specific in what they do. For example, I'm in Switzerland. I speak French and English, and I want to interview people that are from here and from the US or elsewhere. So my podcast is in 2 languages. Some episodes are in French, some are in English.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
Depending on, and I struggled for a long time. Oh, should I do only one? No, I'm going to interview who I want. It's my podcast. And people that don't understand one of the 2 languages, just listen to the ones that they can. Um, you could go very specific in the topics that you want to touch on, but for me, it's as much marketing as it is learning for me as well. So I'll
Right.
interview, coaches and trainers in the field that I respect and that I look up to, and I have some questions to ask them, and I get to ask them live with them, and then I get to review the material and learn some stuff for myself in addition to creating content.
Okay. Now, so when you do that, like just so does each podcast be basically like you don't have to have one name and then talk like say like I listen to Bulletproof a lot.
Hmm.
So and it'd be like Bulletproof and then have like the title of whatever he's interviewing. Is that how you would do it too? Like have like my business name's Mission Wellness. So would I have like Mission Wellness and then each individual podcast will have its own title?
Yeah, with usually and that again, you can Google it and YouTube it and see how to structure podcast titles so that people click on them, because again, it's a game of who's going to look at it and who's going to play it. But yeah, you have the name of your podcast, which you can make. My training company is called Upside Strength, and so it's literally the Upside Strength podcast. I didn't I didn't look any farther than that, right? I mean,
Okay.
think of Bulletproof Coffee. It's probably the Bulletproof podcast. So you can go and create something that's almost separate from your business, or you could just make the podcast
The name
your
of your
your business name and
oh,
podcast, right?
okay.
Or radio or talk show. I mean, you can get creative with that. You don't have to call it a podcast, but again, you get to decide what you do. And at first, I had like a set of questions that I asked all my guests. What's your background? What do you like in the industry? Who do you look up to? Like, what books do you recommend? And now I look into my guests a bit more in advance and find specific questions that are related to what they do.
Oh,
So that's changed over time as well. So you could start with one thing, and then again,
Right.
it's
It's
your
always a work in progress.
it is, and it's your podcast, and you do what you want with it. That's what's kind of cool
That
about it.
would be fun for me because I love asking questions.
Yeah, it's
I just find people interesting. I find what they do interesting, and I think it's fascinating, and I love that. That's cool, like to do a talk show.
yeah. So we have a few more minutes, so maybe if you have maybe two or three other questions that we can quickly touch on.
I'll ask. So my fiance, he's a chiropractor,
Yeah.
and do you think it would be cool if we did some collaboration on social media together to show he does chiropractic, I do naturopathic. So do you think that's a good avenue, or do you think that could get confusing for people?
Um, Try and see what comes back, right?
Okay.
You could do your content, and then you could have Mike come in at certain times and do collaborations on certain videos,
Yeah.
on certain topics, maybe where it's relevant for him to be in the frame, and give his take on that specific aspect of things, or have topics that you guys both like to talk about, and maybe do some content with this in mind. Again, this, like, the sky's the limit. You do what you want. It's your content. And again, whether it's relevant to people or not, you have to try. You're not going to
Right.
know until you put it out there and consistently, and see what the response is.
So, okay, so then that leads me to a question because you just made me think of it. Is there anything you can do wrong? Like you'd be like, that is like a way to tank yourself, like as
Yeah,
far as
not starting creating content tomorrow.
oh, okay, so starting and you're good as long as you get something
Yeah,
like good quality content.
you're gonna make mistakes, and it's not gonna be great at first, and you're gonna cringe a little bit when you're doing it because you're not comfortable, because you're not used to it. But we all started there. I mean, you
Yeah.
can go on the biggest YouTube channels, right? The ones that you follow now, the best ones. I have one in mind. I forget what his name is, but he talks about digital marketing, how to make videos online, etc. And his videos are super polished, super well edited, super well put together. You don't skip a beat. There's no like dead time or anything. You go back to like 7 years ago and watch his first video. It's him with like a hoodie on in like a basement, and he's like, "So that's my first video. I don't really know what I'm doing," and it's hilarious.
Wow,
It's
that's funny.
complete. You couldn't even tell it's the same person,
So
right?
you came like a long way.
Very long way, but he started, right?
Yeah, no,
It's
because
always the hardest step.
it is because there's this sense of vulnerability putting yourself out there like that. And it's funny, like I can do acting all day long, but it's scripted, right? Like somebody else wrote the script. So I have confidence in that script.
Yeah,
And when it's on you, I think sometimes you just get in your own head, but you feel like, oh no, I don't, people are going to, you have this vulnerability and it's like, and I think it's just putting that like just being like you just got to make that move. Once you make that move, that
yeah.
vulnerability probably finally like will pass, right?
It-
Like it won't
it-
be
you'll still feel it at times, right? It won't just go away and vanish. You'll still feel it on certain things. I'm not like super experienced. I started making a lot of videos maybe 6 months ago, um, but I still get it sometimes on certain topics. Sometimes I script my videos, sometimes I don't. When I don't, I'll usually, if I'm driving somewhere, I'll repeat what I want to say a few times out loud while driving to frame my
yeah,
thoughts. And then when I stop the car and park, then I'll record my 3-minute video, right? So
okay, yeah.
it's not always off the top of my head. Some people can do it, and that's great. Um, Maybe you will be able to do it right off the bat. Maybe not. Maybe you'll need a script to start, and maybe you'll slowly get comfortable and find your. It's just about finding your groove with it. Everybody works
Right.
differently, but until you try, you're not going to know what works and what doesn't for you.
So true. Okay, so just doing that. Okay, I'm gonna take those steps. I'm definitely because I knew it's time, and that's why I've been looking into like beginning, and now I'm ready. I'm kind of excited about it too, especially like the podcast stuff. I love that the video
It's a
about the
lot of
podcast.
fun. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's a
I
lot of
think
fun.
that'd be really because I seriously could have my own talk show. I like to ask, like my fiance always yells at me for asking so many questions. I'm like, well, I'm just genuinely interested. Like I want
and
to
and
know.
that's and it's going to make you great at podcasting, right? Because it's literally asking the right questions and knowing how to follow up on something, and knowing how to when to dig deeper and when to just move on to the next thing. And again, it doesn't come naturally. Maybe it will to you, but the more you got to start somewhere.
I will. Thank you so much.
No, it was a great pleasure to talk with you, and I hope that you'll be able to look back at the recording because we'll post that, like I said, online, and I'll definitely send you the link and try to take a few notes and then figure out which steps to take first, and then you just got to go and do it. It's I mean, at the end of the day, that's the difference between those that hope and those that get somewhere is, did you execute? What did you do today to make your business move forward? Did you just wait, or did you like make a plan, make a list, and then just destroy that list and then see where you stand and then make another list? You know what I mean?
Right, right. Just beginning is like the only way to get anywhere. You're right.
Exactly.
Absolutely. I thank you. It was, I mean, it was so helpful. And yeah, send me the link because I want to follow your stuff and
Hmm.
I'll do all that. Yeah, that's awesome. Because you give a lot of great advice, a lot of good information. So I
Well, I'm
really
glad. I'm glad it was helpful, and I look forward to listening to your podcast then.
awesome. Yeah, I'll send you. I'll let you know when it's good. Thank
All right.
you.
All right. Take care.
Bye.